Hello, welcome to another briefing. So, I'm going to start out as I usually do by showing the satellite imagery. I'm going to actually zoom out a little bit in this. And so I'm showing you here the cloud coverage over most of the state of California. Go back to this morning, we had low clouds filling in much of the coastline from about Sonoma County southward and a little bit up in the far northern California, but then there was some clearing along the coast in some areas here in between maybe parts of Mendocino County and Sonoma County. And then as we went through the morning hours and the early afternoon, that fog quickly retreated back to the coast and also end up getting wiped out a bit for most coastal locations north of Half Moon Bay, and also a bit in Santa Cruz, although Half Moon Bay and Monterey did hold on to that cloud cover throughout the afternoon. But it's interesting to notice. I'm just going to zoom back in a little bit. It's interesting to notice this drier air here. The winds were more slightly west northwest here. So usually we have a west wind here, but we had kind of a west northwest wind, which does tend to dry out because it's not coming directly from the ocean and it ends up downsloping these mountains a little bit. It kind of rips up the fog. It dries out the inversion layer. So there's still a cold air layer here, but it just gets um, ripped up. The fog gets dried out by those drying northwest winds. I can show you what I mean here. You look at the surface observations for the bay. We're just gonna remove the number. We're gonna do just wind. So I don't know if that's possible. Yeah, because I could do. It doesn't let me do just the. Interesting. Okay. Well, we'll just do wind. Just pay attention to the wind barbs. And I'm gonna show here. See, there's this. It's mostly pointing out of the northwest here, along coastal locations north of San Francisco, and then you have more of a west-southwest wind into Half Moon Bay, where you did see that stratus patch. But all this strong north wind here did eat away at the marine clouds, at least during the day. So chilly, lots of 50s throughout San Francisco, even way into parts of the East Bay and parts of the North Bay here. It was a very chilly afternoon. Only low 60s for highs, really, for a lot of these locations, but it did actually clear out pretty nicely for areas north of Half Moon Bay here, thanks to those northerly northwest winds along the coast. The clouds will likely fill back in tonight, so we have plenty of moisture at the surface and low pressure aloft, which will cause a lot of lift in the atmosphere, allow those clouds to push over the coastal hills and penetrate into the bay and bayside communities, for instance, as those westerly winds usher in the fog. Now, what I wanted to turn my attention to is the long-range outlook. We're going to be looking at pressure height anomaly, basically how much higher or how much lower the pressure is compared to average at the 18,000 foot level. And this is going to generally dictates, not always, but generally how hot it's going to get or how cold it's going to get. And so as we put this into motion here, going in Sunday, Monday here, these are two computer models that we're comparing, the European on the left and the GFS on the right. You start to see pretty good agreement as we go into Tuesday afternoon. This would be 2 p.m. Pacific time, 21 Zulu. um, you're seeing this heat wave start to set up over the Pacific Northwest. It looks like potentially the state of Washington could be in for some big time heat, as there's a strong anomaly here. I'll show this area of anomaly. Look at that. That's big heat. It's a lot of sinking air, and that's going to warm up the atmosphere. It's a kind of a pressure cooker effect. Pretty good model agreement that that will happen. The GFS does want to swing a low pressure trough a little bit closer to Washington State than the Euro is hinting at on Thursday, so maybe a little cooler on this solution. We'll have to see which one of these plays out. But then both of those models want to build an even stronger ridge, more expansive, and that could actually stretch into. It could affect more like areas to the south, so all the way down to California as well. And another thing to notice with this is that the heat could go all the way to the coast with this second shot of heat here, because what's going to happen is we're going to have a surface high pressure set up in a way that's favorable for offshore winds. Now I'm going to show that here using a different map, which is going to show surface pressure. And so with that first shot of heat, Tuesday afternoon, that I was showing on the other model, it's going to be hot in Washington State because you have a sort of a northeast wind situation going on, because you have high pressure. Let's just pick out where the high pressure is. There's one over here. There's another one over here. It's pressure greater than 1024 millibars at the surface. And then there's going to find lower pressure, which is, there's one out here, of course. And then there's more low pressure. Let's put a different color on it, actually. And there's another, basically over here, the pressure is lower, right? There's not really a low centered here, but it's like lower over here. And so the wind, it tends to flow from high pressure to low pressure, but the curvature of the air, of the earth, causes that wind to tilt. So let me see if I can explain this. It would do this generally, but with the curvature of the earth, it kind of turns like this. And we know that the wind tends to go, in the northern hemisphere, it tends to go in a clockwise direction around high pressure centers and a counterclockwise direction around low pressure centers. So the wind will be roughly north or northwest. I'm actually going to use a different tool here, so it's easier to show this. It's doing kind of something like this, roughly. So that is an offshore wind. That brings warm, dry air down, sloping down the mountains here, and warming and drying and bringing hot air pretty much all the way to the coast, at least into the Seattle area. Will be quite hot, it's looking like. Maybe not the immediate coast. There might just be enough west wind, just enough onshore wind here at the coast to keep things cool. If this high pressure center were a little further east, I would be more confident in the heat going all the way to the coast. But as is, maybe not like a coastal heat wave, but it will be hot in places like Seattle and Portland. So to keep that in mind. Now, as we put this into motion, as we go through the later part of the week, look at what happens when the pressures. This high pressure starts creeping up here. And what we're looking at on what would be 5 p.m. Friday is this. This is the setup. High pressure over here. Now California, parts of the coast or areas really close to the coast, maybe not the beaches, but At least areas really close to the coast in California, we'll see probably 80s, 90s, hundreds in the Central Valley probably. But pretty warm conditions all the way to the coast, or at least really close to the coast. Because you have the wind will be doing something like this. Have a high over here and you have a low over here. It's going to be doing something like this. That's offshore wind. That's a north-northeast wind for areas like the Bay Area, for instance. Now this low might, if there's like higher pressure over here, this low might trigger a little bit of an onshore wind for the immediate coast. I'm not sure, but I mean, it's looking like there could be heat all the way to the coast. Let's put the temperature projections for this model. See, this model wants pretty hot air, I mean, it gets pretty close to the coast here. But let's look at that first dose of the heat, right? That first shot. Look at that. 88 degrees and projected for Seattle by the 5 p.m. time frame on Wednesday here. 80 for Portland. It's a rare occasion it'll be hotter in Seattle than Portland because of the way this ridge is setting up, or the anomalies are setting up further into the north, and maybe more offshore wind here than there would be in Portland. That might be going on. See, it's still pretty chilly along the California coastline because we have plenty of onshore wind. The valley's heating up, but coast is chilly. But then as we go in a few more days, as we go into what would be 5 p.m. Friday, you see with the high pressure shifting to the north, the hot air would be transported closer to the coast, and you see the coast is actually getting warmer. I mean, the immediate coastline may be still chilly, but areas pretty close to the coast are heating up with this. You go in. Okay, so then it cools, but let's see. Yeah, let's keep. Well, yeah, 5 p.m. Friday. And we'll just go into Central California here. So, I mean, 5 p.m. Friday. Yeah, it could be chilly in places like Half Moon Bay, 57. But then go just a little bit inland, and you see a lot of 80s, 90s, and then 100s as you go further inland. Let me see if I can go zoom in a little more to the Bay Area. So this is, okay, now this is showing me a different run. Just a second. Okay, 5 p.m. Alright, actually I'm going to put the maximum on. It's going to give me a better idea here. So these are basically the high temperatures for Friday afternoon. Okay, this doesn't... Oh, okay, sorry. I was looking at the wrong Friday. Yeah. This... Yeah. Okay, these are the projected high temperatures for the European model for next Friday afternoon in the Bay Area. And you see, I mean, you go just a little bit inland from the coast and look at, like, well, 80s and then 90s a little further inland from that, and then you have 100s. But you have 80 degrees, you have the 80-degree line pretty close to the coast. I mean, look at this. This is like, yeah, this is close. I mean, 70 degrees all the way, like Bayside communities, like areas like San Francisco, probably be 70. And it could be hotter if that high pressure ends up trending a little further to the east or slightly different position. This 70-degree line could end up at the coast or maybe even offshore, and it would be even hotter than this. Let me see what the GFS wants for this period. Ooh, the GFS is a hotter solution. See, the GFS would have probably more offshore wind, less onshore wind for a chance of cooling, because this GFS wants 71 degrees all the way at the water at Half Moon Bay, and it wants that 80-degree line even closer. It wants 100 degrees for Novato, whereas the Euro says 83. So the GFS is even more aggressive with the heat. So this is something to watch. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on this as we go through time. So I don't want to make this video super long. It's pretty long already. So thank you for watching. I hope you got something out of this, and I'll see you next time.